Here, it finally is, the long-awaited review of the Razer Ornata Chroma. And when I emphasize on long-awaited, it was me waiting for so long. Because already on IFA 2016 last year in September when this was announced, I couldn't wait to get my hands on it just because it sounded like exactly the keyboard that I was waiting for such a long time. But I had to wait even longer because for some reason it took quite a while to actually arrive here in Germany. It's actually still not that easy to get, and I wasn't patient enough to wait for it to get it from Razer directly, and that's why I ordered it as well as the Black Widow version 2 from Cyberport. So thanks for these review units. But what I want to make sure of just right from the start is that I don't care that this is not a fully mechanical keyboard but just a mecha membrane keyboard. All that matters to me is the typing experience. And before I'm going to talk about that, because once I will start, I will drift a little bit off because I have so many great things about it to say, I would say let's take a look at the build and the design. Okay, here it is, and the first thing that I want to get into is the actual mechanism of the wrist rest, because it is attached via magnets. As you can see, those are way too weak though. So I'm not even 100% sure why they even bothered to make these magnetic, because they are just way too weak. And one thing that you will maybe see is that the wrist rest itself is kind of bent towards the middle. So it's a 100% flat, and you will hear this. Not a huge issue actually for me, since I use a mouse pad beneath it, and that's why it was leveled out. So not a problem, but one thing that I still want to point out, the cushioning here is very soft. It's maybe not super thick, but it definitely gives you the right height and is comfortable for hours and hours. So after all, even though the mechanism isn't perfect, this is still a very nice wrist rest. Now let's get into the keyboard itself. As you can see here, we have feet to raise it up a little bit, but we also have these rubber feet. You can reroute the cables to the sides, but also to the front. And the cable itself is a little bit stiff, but at least it's of regular thickness, which is nice to see. As you can also see, the buttons are only half height, which is though the highlight for me. Otherwise, in terms of build quality, it doesn't feel particularly high quality or premium because it's mostly just of plastic and it bends a little bit, but it's still solid in my opinion. But what I want to get into a little bit later is the actual lighting and the software. I will cover this after the review, so just watch the video a little bit longer after I've done my conclusion, because what I want to get now into is the actual typing experience. What I like though is, and something that I want to point out about the lighting, is that the extra functions like the dollar symbol and so on are actually lit up as well, which is not, for example, the reason on the Black Widow 2 and was a little bit annoying. So let's get into why this is such a unique and special keyboard for me and why I like it so much. It is, first of all, the sound. Let's check that. Simply amazing, because it gives you a nice audible click, but you also feel this, and this is pretty much the second, maybe even more so important thing. It is the tactile feedback. Yes, the actuation point is a little bit stiffer, like on most other like Cherry MX switches, but this is exactly the feedback that I like, because it gives you a nice tactile bump, and it's a little bit stiffer so it doesn't feel wobbly at all, because the buttons almost don't wobble at all. So it gives you a very firm and great stiff typing experience. And I just simply like the fact that it sounds so great while typing, but even if I have a headphone on and don't hear it, it's the amazing tactile feedback and the bump and the actuation that makes typing feel so great. I don't know why. Also, of course, because the buttons are only half height, which is nice for me, because I still have a little bit of a fatigue if I type longer on those higher keys, and that's why it's nice. I can use my fingers a little bit more flat. It's easier for me to type on it. I can type very quickly and actually very error-free, and this is why I love the typing experience so much. If you talk about the gaming, this is something that I properly can't judge so much, because I'm just not more than a casual gamer. Because it definitely feels different than a mechanical keyboard in terms of, for example, linear switches like the Reds from MX, because this is still fine. Because if I would use the best possible switch and the worst possible switch, it wouldn't really change my gaming behavior. But for everyone who's playing for hours and hours, this actuation point, this stiffer feel, could be a little bit more fatiguing and actually slow you down a little bit, because it feels like you can't just press the buttons as fast and you don't get the bump again back so quickly. So if you are a very competitive, fast gamer, I don't think this is ideal. If you're just a casual gamer, I don't think this will stop you. At least it didn't me. And that's why I already want to go into the pros and cons. And like I said, after then you will see the lighting and the software. So let's start off with the pros and cons. Good build quality, absolutely solid. It doesn't feel super premium, but it totally gets the job done. No problems here at all. Half height keycaps. For me, it's one of the highlights because it's something that you don't see that often. And I personally know to appreciate it because it makes typing for me just a little bit easier. And this comes along with the amazing typing experience, which is very unique and something I have not seen just because of the really nice stiff actuation and the insanely awesome tactile feedback. And the clicking sound makes the whole experience for typing pretty much one of a kind, at least from what I've tested, especially compared to all the normal mechanical switches. And for me, it's the best experience that I've had so far. For gaming, still good enough for me, but like I said, I don't think it's ideal for heavy gamers. The software is absolutely great because you can adjust pretty much everything. You can set macros, you can adjust the shortcuts, you can set it up. I will show this a little bit later, but I'm happy with that. I like what they do with the software here. The chroma lighting is great as well. You can see that later after as well. What I like is that the extra keys or the extra function on the keys are lit up as well. We have a comfortable wrist rest, even though with the magnets it's not very perfectly done. We have a stiff but therefore at least regular thick cable because it's a little bit annoying. For example, the thick one on the Razer Black Widow version 2. And the value, in my opinion, with about $100 is still okay. I would definitely pay this amount because the experience definitely makes up for it. What's not that great? There are a few things after all. The wrist rest is not 100% flat. Maybe over time it will actually bend towards the middle, but like I said, if you have a mouse pad beneath that, you shouldn't really notice that after all. Then, what is a little bit weird, and I want to show this off just real quick, we have a little bit of a matte dark gray keycap, which is not the same as on some keyboards, especially the Black Widow 2, because that one has a little bit more of a gloss, also not 100% glossy, but black keycaps. So I personally would have preferred proper, those more a little bit kind of glossy but black keycaps. But that's just a minor thing, and they pick up a little bit more fingerprints. You will see the finger oil, so it's maybe not 100% amazing, but not enough to really bother me. Then, like I said, maybe not ideal for gamers, and maybe as a con it's not fully mechanical, but I don't care about that. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Once again, thanks to Cyberport for the review units, and if you have any questions or anything further down there below to say, and if you have this keyboard, let me know if you think the same about the typing experience, because I think it's so amazing. And I will end this video now, and then you will see, of course, the lighting and the software part. Until next time, bye. Okay, so the main review is over, but for everyone who wants to know a little bit more about the software and also see the lighting in action, now it's the time for that. If you have ever used the Razer device with the Synapse software, you pretty much know what to expect, because here in the first tab where we see the keyboard, we have some different profiles we can set up, and one thing that I particularly like is the auto profile option, because if you enter a specific app that is set to one profile, it will switch the layout to that one, and if you leave it, it will switch back to the other one, and if you enter another app, it will switch once again. So this is something that I particularly find to be very useful on the mice. Now, in terms of the buttons, if you want to set it up, just press the button you want to change, and now you have the options to pretty much set it to everything you want. There is pretty much no limitation. You can set macros, inter-device, mouse functions, keyboard functions, pretty much everything. I didn't run into any limitations so far yet, and this is something that I definitely like a lot. Now, if you go into the lighting, you will see that a little bit later on, especially with the chroma apps. But here, of course, you can set also different profiles and see the different lighting effects and so on. And then we have the gaming mode where we can disable certain buttons and so on, so they won't disturb us. If we see the macro tab now here you can record tabs and set them up the way you want to. So very powerful for sure. Chroma apps, of course, you can change those, and you have some stats. That's already in some way all about there is to say about the software. I find it to be very, very capable, very useful, and very intuitive. So yeah, nothing further to add here.